Endgame. How many of you have seen that? Have any of you seen it? You didn't go see it? Oh gosh, I can't believe it. You know what the Avengers are, don't you? I thought you guys had gone to see it. Did you know that movie broke all records for money taken in? I think it's only being surpassed now by John Wick 3 that's just now coming out. But on its opening weekend, it grossed $357,115,707. And it gained the #1 rank as it opened worldwide in 4,662 theaters, each taking in some $76,601 on an average. And in 3 weekends, now get this, it grossed $2,508,890,553. Now can you feed that back to me? I didn't think so. But do you know what it was about, the end game? How many did see it?
I know the spoilers.
You saw it. You saw it. What was it about? Before Thanos killed them. And what was Thanos going to do? Who is Thanos? He's the bad guy, right? And all of the Avengers are the good guys. Do you know who the Avengers are? Could you name them? Who is this?
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. All right, anybody? All right. She's not. She was in this movie. Who is this? Thor. Okay. And who is this? This was also in that movie. Black Panther was in the movie, right? I mean, everybody was in the movie. Who about this?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Okay. And who is this? This is a little known one, but I don't even know if he had his own movie or not.
No.
What is he?
Hawkeye.
Huh?
Hawkeye.
It's Arrow, I think.
No,
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye? That's what his name is?
Yep.
Okay. You live and learn. And who is this? What's that? Black Widow, right? Romanos was her last name.
The Hulk.
Oh, yeah, okay. This really happens to me when I get really mad. You haven't seen me really mad. You don't want to get me really mad. And who is that? Anybody know what happened to Iron Man in the movie? What happened?
He died.
Yeah, very sad. Who else dies? Eve. Spoiler alert, but the whole thing is going to be a spoiler alert today. And who is that? All right, Captain America. And who is that? That's Thanos. This is the bad guy, right? All right. Now, I'm going to talk just a little bit, and I'm going to let you go back. But I want to give you a gift for coming up here. All right? I want you to be superheroes. These are superheroes, but does anybody really like that? Does anybody, what is your superpower? My superpower is that I can sleep through a movie. Sometimes I'm there, and the next thing you know, I go out of consciousness, and then I hear the music change. What? And then the credits are coming up. So that's my superpower. What's your superpower? You have one? All these guys have superpowers, right? Yeah. What is the superpower of that one? He's just plain hard to kill, isn't he? But he's got this shield that he can throw, and it cuts through things, right? All right. But none of us are really endowed that way. But we can do things for God. And the story was about good and evil. And it was the end game. And that's what I want to talk to you. I want you guys to be heroes for Jesus, to stand up for Jesus. And I've got somebody who's not really one of the Avengers, but I wanted to give you a gift today of the Flash. And part of this was because Home Depot was going out of business. Everybody that came down front gets a Flash.
Office Depot, Pastor Kim.
What's that?
Office Depot.
What's that? Not Home Depot, I'm sorry. Office Max. Office Depot. Yeah, Office Depot's going out. Go ahead. Okay, you go back to your seat now.
Yes.
You ever see the bishop say nice things about me, okay? The story that came out, and there's many different stories, is that the evil Thanos was threatening to destroy the universe as we know it and kill all of the Avengers. And it was about the final battle to save the universe and planet Earth particularly. And it's a transformational story. You know, we like those kind of stories. I come away kind of satisfied, even though there was some sadness because certain members of the Avengers were done away with. But the story is a transformational story. And in literature, these kind of stories work for us. That you have a context, that there's something that's going on with people, a heroine, or whoever the story is about, a hero or a heroine, a hero or heroine, that has a context, and then something goes on. They don't just sit and sip tea and we watch it. It actually is a conflict that happens, that something is threatening their lives, threatening the peace and the well-being, often of the whole world, or of something. And as this evil power comes in, and it happens in many, many stories that we listen to, that we like to go see on television or read in books. Then there's a scanning. What can we do about it? And then the evil intensifies, the situation intensifies, and it looks like all will be lost. And just when it seems totally hopeless, suddenly the thing changes and a mediator comes in and comes to the rescue. It may be Merlin. It may be Gandalf. It may be a fairy godmother. It doesn't matter, but someone comes to the rescue and the mediator negates the evil. And after an intensified struggle, the evil, threatening powers are vanquished and peace and tranquility then rules. We see that story in something as simple as fairy tales like Little Red Riding Hood when she's about to be eaten, but who comes in and beheads the evil fox? The woodsman comes in, right? Something that you hadn't expected in this story. Or Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Or the Lord of the Rings and Gandalf and the intervention right at the very end. The story is that there's a conflict and it seems hopeless for the people involved until something comes from out of nowhere and changes the situation, negates the evil, and then there's peace and tranquility. And the story is satisfying because it fits a pattern. It also fits the pattern of reality that we have the big picture of creation and creation gone awry and heading for destruction and violence filling the earth and things getting worse and earthquakes and all kinds of things. And then we have the final denouement. Christ comes and intervenes. Philosophers call that the meta-narrative. Some people don't believe there is a meta-narrative, but we Christians believe there is a big story, and that I think those satisfying stories that we read that are transformational stories speak to us about the reality. Now, people speculate about how will the world end. Are we in a kind of cosmic conflict? Will the world end? Is there an end game? Will life as we know it one day come to an end? It's a hard thing for us to get our minds around. Will Earth ever be destroyed? All living things die, and Earth will be left as a lifeless, dead planet, lifeless as Mars, just revolving in an empty void. Is that our vision of the future? I always liked a poem by Robert Frost that I read a long time ago, and I can just about commit it to memory. It's called Fire and Ice. Listen to the words of this poem. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. But from what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. He wrote that when he was getting older and thought that his mental powers were failing. He wrote the poem and felt better. I understood that. How will Earth end? The famous atheist and philosopher Bertrand Russell held a rather dismal view about the future of the world and the universe when he speculated, and listen to these words, after ages during which the earth produced harmless trilobites and butterflies, evolution progressed to the point at which it generated Neros and Genghis Khans and Hitlers. This, however, is a passing nightmare. In time, the earth will become again incapable of supporting life, and peace will return. Is that our vision of the future? A lifeless world, and nobody's here to worry about it. T.S. Eliot wrote the famous poem, The Hollow Men, and this is the most quoted lines out of The Hollow Men. And one of the verses put it this way: "This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but a whimper." Will the world just sort of peter out? Politically, the left-leaning advocates of the Green New Deal are telling us we have only about 12 more years. I don't think they even take themselves that seriously, but we only have 12 more years of life on this earth if we don't vote for their plan. My question as a Christian is, does our faith offer any alternative vision about the earth and about us? I think it does. That branch of theology that is concerned with the last things, we have a fancy $3 word for it called eschatology, because it comes from the Greek word eschaton that means the end, the final end, the end game. And I believe that God has an end game, and that's what Sarah read from the book of Revelation today. Because what I believe is what God started, God will bring to completion. And the grand finale I call God's end game. What Jesus did was to enact universal salvation, an all-embracing salvation. Jesus' resurrection signaled the beginning of the divine purpose anticipated for the future, the anticipation and the first fruits of the end game. Why do we celebrate the resurrection? Not simply because a guy a long time ago died and rose again, but because it signaled the beginning of a new creation. I heard a story about the guy that he and his wife went over to the Holy Land and visited over there, and his wife died while he was there. The Israeli government said, well, you can bury her here for $500, or we can help transport her back home for $5,000. What would you like to do? And he said, I think I'll take her back home. They said, why would you want to do that when you can save so much money? It's only $500 to bury her here. It takes $5,000 to get the body back. He said, well, a long time ago, a guy died here and he came back to life. I can't take that risk. Well, what is salvation? When I use that word salvation, it's more than teaching simply about that we get to go to heaven after we die. Now, rest assured, I believe in heaven. I believe that I'm going there someday. I believe that I came from God and I will return from God. I believe that to be absent from this body is to be present with the Lord. And though that's true, that only comprises a very small part of God's grand scheme of things. Biblically speaking, salvation includes much, much more than souls going to heaven after they die. Because salvation is about healing. In fact, the word in the English comes from salus in the Latin, that means healing or health. Salute is the Italian counterpart of that. Restoration to wholeness, the state of the well-being of all things. A universal in the Hebrew word shalom, meaning peace. Salvation means rescue from threatening powers, not just a fictitious character like Thanos, but all of the devil and his works. It means the restoration to wholeness, all relationships are right-wise, put back together correctly, and all distortions smoothed out. It means peace, not just the absence of conflict and war, but the ultimate completion and restoration of all things in God's purpose and design. The Apostle Paul did not limit salvation to saving souls from hell. What a reduction when we speak about that term in the Bible. In fact, he never mentioned salvation that way. Instead, he wrote about salvation in the masterful 8th chapter of the book of Romans, when he said, the whole creation waits breathless with anticipation for the revelation of God's sons and daughters. Creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice. It was the choice of the one who subjected it, but in the hope that the creation itself will be set free from the slavery to decay and brought into the glorious freedom of God's children. We know, he wrote, that the whole creation is groaning together and suffering in labor pains until now. And not only the creation, we ourselves who have the first crop of the harvest also groan inside as we wait to be adopted as our bodies to be set free. A friend of mine, every time he gets bad news and things that are going on, he just said, I'm so homesick for heaven. I'm homesick for the end. I'm homesick when the world will be put right again. Jesus spoke mostly about this world, not about heaven, not an escape. Jesus emphasized how we are to live as heavenly creatures fit for heaven. The Christian project is not to take us to heaven, but to make us heavenly creatures fit for that kind of world where people can get along. That was what was the meaning of Jesus' new commandment, which was really an old commandment. But he said, I am giving you a new commandment. Love one another as I have loved you. He spoke of the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of God, meaning the realm in which God exercises God's authority. And the truth is, even now, we already experience the kingdom of God. Here and there, now and then, we see things when we get along, when we serve people, when we love God, when we're praising and God is elevating our hearts. We experience that reality of the kingdom of God, but we do not yet experience its completion. We experience it only in a fragmentary and incomplete way, and not yet the final denouement. God has an end game. And the end game is more expansive, more inclusive, more all-comprehending than anything that we can imagine. Paul breaks into almost doxology when he paraphrases Isaiah 64:4, and he says in the 2nd chapter of 1 Corinthians, he says, Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has it entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for those who love him. It's too wonderful for words. To speak of the wonders of the world to come, we all of a sudden have to shift over to symbolic language, which the writer of Revelation does. Because the reality transcends what we can adequately capture with language or understand from our present experiences. In the New Testament, the book of Revelation offers a spoiler alert. The evil loses and God wins. And so we live our lives, even though the evil may seem oh so strong and the darkness seem oh so real, but we shine as lights in the midst of a dark universe. Because God will intervene and vanquish all evil. And in the vision, the writer puts it this way, and I love the words that come from Revelation that Sarah read this morning. I saw a new heaven and a new earth. The first heaven and the first earth had passed away. There was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with people, and he will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. And God will wipe every tear from their eyes. There'll be no more sorrow, no more death, no more crying. There'll be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. And the one that sat on the throne said, Behold, I am making all things new. And he said to me, Write, these words are faithful and true. And he said, I am the Alpha and Omega. It is done. I'm the beginning and the end. I will give the fountain of the water of life freely to him who thirsts. That's the vision that we live by. When I go over to the manor and I see people struggling to get in, some can't see very well, some can't hear very well, some are in wheelchairs. One day, the pains of the body will no longer be there. We'll be transcended in this earthly body. We'll put on the heavenly body. We'll be in a world that is too great for words, and even something as valuable as gold is simply what you're only walking on. So let me summarize. God's end game entails the renewal of all creation. 2, God's salvation embraces everything and everybody. Number 3, we have to employ symbolic language like the city of Jerusalem, New Jerusalem, the river of life. No more threatening sea. The tree of life is there for partaking. The trees are bearing fruit, and the leaves are for the healing of the nations. And the last thing is that God's end game wipes away every tear from our eyes. There's no more death, no more sorrow, no more crying, no more pain, for the former things have passed away. Has that happened yet? The answer is no. It has not happened yet. If it already happened, we wouldn't be hoping for it. But hope is faith in its future orientation, and we don't live here hopelessly in despair about the future. Even if we endure persecution, even if we do endure suffering, and many Christians right now in some parts of the world, their churches are being burned and their lives are being threatened. But yet there's a hope beyond this when Jesus comes, vanquishes all evil, negates the evil, and sets up universal shalom. That is our hope. That is our peace. Thanks be to God. One day we're going to fly away to that. I don't know when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. It may be that when I die, that's where I go. It may be that Jesus comes back in our lifetime, and wouldn't that be sweet? Let's turn to number 2282 in our Faith We Sing, and let's sing I'll Fly Away. Let's stand together for this song.